The most profound symphonies are not always heard with the ears. They are felt in the tremble of a heart learning to beat again, seen in the quiet determination of a spirit refusing to be broken, and composed in the resonant silence that follows a great fall. This is not a story about loss. It is a story about a man who was handed a world of silence and, from its depths, composed a masterpiece that would make the entire world lean in and listen. Ethan's world was a tapestry woven with sound. He was a composer, not of the famous sort who filled grand concert halls, but of the everyday, intimate kind. His instrument was his life, and he conducted it with a joyous, unbridled passion. The frantic staccato rhythm of his typing as he met a journalism deadline, the gentle adagio of his wife Lena's, laughter from the kitchen as she experimented with a new recipe, the sweet, chaotic crescendo of his young daughter, Maya, building a pillow fort in the living room. This was the music of his soul. He and Lena had a ritual. Every Sunday evening, they would put on an old vinyl record, something soulful, like Miles Davis or Nina Simone, and they would dance. They'd sway in the dim light of their living room, Maya sometimes clinging to their legs, giggling. In those moments, with Lena's head on his shoulder and the music seeping into his bones, Ethan felt a perfect, crystalline happiness. He believed he understood the language of the universe, and it was written in melody and harmony. It was a Tuesday. Rain slicked the city streets, turning headlights into shimmering smears of gold and red. Ethan was driving home from work, the radio playing a soaring orchestral piece that mirrored his mood. He was thinking of the story he was writing, of the lasagna Lena had texted him about, of the way Maya would launch herself into his arms at the door. He was, as always, composing the soundtrack to his own happiness. The green light of the intersection was a bright emerald through the downpour. He never saw the delivery truck run the red. The impact was not a sound. It was the end of sound, a cataclysmic, shattering nothingness that swallowed the world whole. It was a force of pure physics, a brutal, unmusical chord of twisting metal and shattering glass. Consciousness returned in fractured, pain-racked glimpses. The frantic, silent flashing of paramedic lights, the pressure of hands on his body, the concerned, moving mouths of strangers, their words lost as if spoken through thick, soundproof glass. He saw it all from the bottom of a deep, silent well. The only thing he could hear was the frantic, terrified drumming of his own heart. He woke to the bleached, antiseptic world of a hospital room. Lena was there, her face pale and streaked with dried tears. Her lips moved. "Ethan, my love, you're okay. You're going to be okay." But her voice was a ghost, a memory. He saw the effort in her throat, the shape of the words, but they landed in a void. He tried to speak, to ask what had happened. But his own voice was a distant, muffled vibration in his skull, unfamiliar and alien. The doctor, a man with kind eyes and a weary posture, used a whiteboard. "You were in a serious accident. You have broken ribs, a concussion." Ethan nodded, impatient. He pointed to his ears. The doctor's expression tightened with a practiced sympathy. He wrote again, the marker squeaking a faint, tactile protest that Ethan could not hear. "The trauma to your temporal bone. The damage is severe. I'm so sorry, Ethan. The hearing loss is profound and, we believe, permanent." Permanent. The word hung in the silent room, heavier than any he had ever known. It wasn't a word on a board. It was a tombstone, laid over the vibrant, noisy life he had lived. Lena clutched his hand, her sobs shaking the bed rail. He felt the vibration of her grief but could not hear its sound. It was a cruelty beyond comprehension, to witness the apex of your loved one's pain and be locked out of its most primal expression. They sent him home a week later. Home was no longer home. It was a museum of a life he could no longer access. Maya, his bright, noisy bird of a daughter, would run to him, her little mouth forming the word "daddy," but no sound would come. He'd smile, a brittle, broken thing, and hug her, feeling her small body's energy. But the connection was severed. Her laughter, once the most beautiful music in his world, was now just a visual of crinkled eyes and a shaking shoulders. He saw the music, but he could no longer hear it. Lena tried, God, how she tried. She learned basic signs. "I love you." Hungry, tired, but their conversations, once deep winding rivers of shared dreams and silly jokes, were now reduced to functional, simplistic gestures. The silence between them grew. Not a peaceful one, but a thick, suffocating blanket. He saw the frustration in her eyes when he would misunderstand, the pity that would flicker across her face before she could hide it. He began to retreat, spending hours in his home office, staring at the blank screen of his computer, the keyboard silent. His journalism career, built on interviews, on listening for the nuance in a voice, was over. The world moved on without him. Friends stopped calling, the silence on the phone being answer enough. Invitations dried up. He was an island, and the sea of sound that connected him to every other person had evaporated. He was, in every way that mattered, being forgotten. Anger came next, a hot, bitter tide. He would slam his fist on the table, the impact a satisfying felt thud in the silent world. He threw his useless state-of-the-art headphones against the wall, watching them shatter with a grim satisfaction. He was angry at the truck driver, at the rain, at God, at the very physics of the universe. But most of all, he was angry at the silence. It was a thief, a taunting, ever-present jailer. One afternoon, in the depths of this rage, he found himself staring at Maya's crayon drawing on the fridge. It was of their family, 3 stick figures holding hands under a lopsided sun. But his figure was drawn off to the side, separated by a blue scribbled wall. A child's perception of the truth was a punch to the gut. He wasn't just losing his past, he was failing his future. It was in the aftermath of this realization, as he sat on the floor of his daughter's room, the silence pressing in on him like a physical weight, that the shift began. He was so tired of fighting the silence. What if he stopped? What if he just listened to it? He closed his eyes and stopped trying to remember sound. Instead, he focused on what was left. He felt the smooth, cool wood of the floor beneath his fingers. He saw the way the dust motes danced in a sliver of afternoon sunlight. He watched Maya from the doorway, completely absorbed in a silent game with her stuffed animals, her face a fluid canvas of emotion, joy, concern, triumph. He saw the way Lena's hand gently brushed a strand of hair from her face, a gesture of such profound, silent love that it brought tears to his eyes. This wasn't an absence. This was a different frequency. The silence wasn't empty. It was full. It was full of the language of touch, of sight, of feeling. The key to his future wasn't in trying to rebuild the bridge to the world of sound, but in learning to speak the native tongue of the world he now inhabited. His silence, he realized, could become his voice. The decision was a seismic shift within him. The next day, he enrolled in a proper American Sign Language course at the local community center. The first class was humbling. His hands, so adept at dancing across a keyboard, felt clumsy and stupid. But he persisted. He met others in the deaf community, not people who saw themselves as broken or disabled, but people who were part of a rich, vibrant culture with its own history, poetry, and humor. He met an older man named Arthur, who had been deaf since birth. Arthur's hands were like birds, his expressions eloquent and full of life. He taught Ethan that ASL wasn't just English on the hands. It was a spatial, visual language where a raised eyebrow could change the meaning of a sentence, and the speed and flow of a sign could convey emotion as powerfully as a shout or a whisper. Ethan began to transcribe the world anew. He started a journal, not of words, but of observations. The way steam rises from Lena's coffee in the morning, a silent, swirling prayer. Maya's feet pounding up the stairs, a rhythm of pure, joyful energy. The weight of the cat, purring on my chest, a vibration that speaks of contentment. He began to write again, not for a newspaper, but for himself. He wrote about the isolation, the beauty he was discovering, the painful, beautiful process of rebuilding a self. He wrote about the symphony of silence. Lena and Maya learned with him. Their home, once a place of strained quiet, became a vibrant, bustling classroom of fluttering hands and expressive faces. The first time Maya successfully signed, "I love you, Daddy," the meaning bypassed his ears and went straight to his heart. A clean, pure note of connection that was more powerful than any spoken word. They learned to argue and sign, their hands flying with a passion that was, in its own way, more honest than their shouted fights of the past. They learned to dance again, not to a vinyl record, but to the rhythm of their own heartbeats, feeling the music through their clasped hands and pressed cheeks. Ethan's writing found an audience online. His blog, The Symphony of Silence, started to gain readers. People were captivated by his raw, poetic portrayal of a world they had never considered. He wrote not with self-pity, but with the keen eye of an explorer mapping an unknown land. He wrote about the frustration of being patronized, The joy of deep visual connection, the absurdities of a world that often forgot that deaf people could drive, work, and think for themselves. A local news station doing a piece on unique local bloggers reached out. They wanted to interview him. Ethan was terrified. To stand before a camera, his silence exposed to the world. But Arthur signed to him, "Your story is your power. Let them see our world through your eyes." The interview was conducted with a certified interpreter. Ethan sat, his hands still in his lap until the questions began. And then he began to sign. His hands, once clumsy, were now graceful and sure. His face was alive with expression. He talked about the accident, the despair, and the rediscovery. He talked about Maya's drawing. He talked about the beauty he had found in his new life, without diminishing the pain of the loss. The interviewer, a seasoned journalist, was visibly moved. When the segment aired, it wasn't just the words and the voiceover that captivated viewers, it was Ethan himself. His presence, the palpable strength and resilience that emanated from him. His silence on screen was not a void. It was a powerful, compelling force. The segment went viral. Offers for speaking engagements poured in, not as a motivational speaker in the traditional sense, but as a storyteller, a bridge between worlds. His first major talk was at a large conference. He stood on the stage, a single spotlight on him. An interpreter stood to the side, but the audience was instructed to watch Ethan. He began to sign. He told his story, and as his hands painted pictures in the air, as his face conveyed the anguish, the hope, the love, and the triumph, the audience of thousands fell into a rapt, profound silence. It was a silence of respect, of deep listening. They weren't just waiting for the translation. They were being communicated with on a primal human level that transcended language. When he finished, the applause was a thunderous, physical wave that he could feel in his chest, a standing ovation that shook the stage. He hadn't just spoken to them. He had moved them in a way no shouted speech ever could. Ethan had become the man who silenced the world, only to have the world listen more intently than ever before. He used his platform to advocate for closed captions, for better accessibility in public spaces, for more representation of the deaf community in media. He wasn't just sharing his personal story. He was amplifying the stories of millions. He had turned his greatest struggle into his life's purpose. Years later, on another Sunday evening, Ethan sat in his living room. Maya, now a teenager, was teaching him a new, complicated slang sign, rolling her eyes with affectionate amusement when he got it wrong. Lena sat nearby, her head resting against his shoulder, her hand finding his. He looked around the room. There was no recorded music playing, but the space was filled with a symphony more profound than any he had ever known. It was in the flicker of the fire in the hearth, the shared glance of understanding with his wife, the playful energy of his daughter. The silence was no longer his prison. It was his concert hall. His journey reminds us that our worth is not defined by the faculties we lose, but by the humanity we reclaim. It teaches us that the human spirit is the most resilient instrument of all, capable of creating beauty from brokenness and composing a legacy of hope from the raw materials of despair. True power doesn't come from the noise around us. It comes from the quiet, unyielding strength within. It's not what happens to us, but how we choose to respond, how we choose to rise, to rebuild and to love, that truly, unforgettably defines us. If Ethan's story has reminded you of the strength that lies within your own challenges, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more journeys of the human spirit. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that they are not alone, and that their silence, their struggle, can become their greatest source of power. Let's work together to build a world that doesn't just hear, but truly listens. Keep believing, keep fighting, and keep rising.